Most people hear the name Sun Tzu and immediately think of battlefields, generals, and strategy quotes reposted by entrepreneurs who've never actually opened the art of war. He's treated like a philosopher of victory, a mystical figure who cracked the psychology of conflict. But that version completely misses the point. Because when you strip away the slogans and the mythology, you discover something far more interesting. Sun Tzu wasn't obsessed with winning battles. He was obsessed with avoiding them. He wasn't chasing glory, honor, or domination. He was thinking about cost. And in a world that was bleeding itself dry through constant warfare, Sun Tzu became one of the first thinkers to say something deeply uncomfortable. The greatest danger to a state isn't the enemy in front of you. It's the bill that comes after. People think the art of war is about fighting. In reality, it's about finance. Welcome to the Capital Historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. To understand Sun Tzu's financial genius, you have to understand the world he lived in. Because his ideas didn't appear in a vacuum. They were born in a civilization collapsing under the weight of its own ambitions. China during the late spring and autumn period and the early Warring States era, roughly the 6th to 5th centuries BCE, was a patchwork of rival kingdoms. Each believed it could unify the world. Each was draining its treasury trying. War was constant. Alliances formed and shattered overnight. Armies grew larger every generation, shifting from small aristocratic forces into massive infantry mobilizations. This wasn't just military expansion, it was an economic stress test. Every time a king sent an army into the field, he was taking a loan against his future, and far too often that loan came due. From the outside, ancient warfare looks heroic. From the inside, it was logistical hell. The moment an army moved, the costs began to pile up. Grain, horses, wagons, armor, blacksmiths, porters, cooks, taxes. A campaign lasting a few months could cripple a small state. A campaign lasting a year could destroy a large one. And yet these kingdoms kept fighting, trapped in an arms race they couldn't afford to stop. This is the world Sun Tzu stepped into, not as a philosopher removed from reality, but as a strategist forced to solve an economic crisis disguised as a military one. Today, we like to imagine him as some ancient motivational speaker. In reality, he was closer to a risk manager. He looked at timelines, logistics, supply chains, and costs, and he realized something most rulers never did. Victory means nothing if the treasury collapses. Many leaders believed the enemy's army was their greatest threat. Sun Tzu believed their own spending was. That's why the most important line in the art of war appears right at the beginning, before deception, terrain, or morale. War is of vital importance to the state. Not glorious, not honorable, vital, meaning dangerous, destabilizing, and capable of destroying the very society it claims to defend. Everything that follows is about keeping war contained, controlled, and above all, cheap. Even his most famous ideas turn out to be economic principles in disguise. When Sun Tzu says, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting," he's not being mystical. He's talking about cost avoidance, getting what you want without burning capital. When he warns that no nation has ever benefited from prolonged warfare, he's stating a literal fiscal truth. The longer a campaign lasts, the more it drains the state's ability to function. Speed, intelligence, deception, psychological pressure. These aren't just tactics. They're cheaper than armies. Sun Tzu wasn't trying to win battles. He was trying to stop states from bankrupting themselves while trying to win battles. Before him, warfare was treated as ritual and honor. After him, it became something else entirely. As armies scaled up, states had to standardize currency, reform taxes, and build bureaucracies just to sustain them. War became a national project, an existential financial risk. Sun Tzu saw that the old mindset was suicidal. War could no longer be about gestures or pride. It had become a balance sheet problem. That's what makes him such an anomaly in history. While others glorified combat, Sun Tzu treated war like accounting. Supply chains, resource depletion, opportunity cost, centuries before those terms existed. He had no patience for generals who chased glory at the expense of stability, because he understood something modern leaders still forget. Every battlefield decision is also a decision about national solvency. Lose control of costs, and you don't just lose soldiers, you lose the state. When you read The Art of War through this lens, it stops sounding like poetry and starts sounding like a spreadsheet. His 5 factors of war aren't philosophy, they're variables. How stable is your society? How resilient are your people? How efficiently can you move resources? How disciplined is your administration? This is risk assessment, and Sun Tzu makes one thing clear from the start. If you can't calculate cost, you have no business calculating strategy. He devotes entire sections to feeding armies, because logistics drain treasuries faster than combat. He warns that transporting supplies is more expensive than paying troops, that prolonged campaigns destroy agricultural labor, that careless commanders bankrupt their nations while chasing meaningless victories. For a military text, it's strangely uninterested in battle, and obsessively interested in expense. Even intelligence in Sun Tzu's world is about efficiency. One spy, he explains, can prevent an entire army from marching in the wrong direction. One piece of information can save a nation years of blood and treasure. What he calls foreknowledge is simply data, and data, to Sun Tzu, was the cheapest weapon available. Speed, too, is economic. Every day an army waits is money burned. Victory delayed is capital wasted. Flexibility, deception, and timing weren't clever tricks. They were fiscal discipline. Sun Tzu didn't oppose war. He opposed waste. And the greatest waste, in his view, was fighting battles you didn't need to fight. That's why he praised diplomacy, intimidation, alliances, and misdirection, not as secondary tools, but as primary strategies, because they preserved the state's limited capital. He warned that rulers who enjoyed war for its own sake would destroy their kingdoms. Behind the language was a simple accounting truth. If you treat war like passion instead of liability, you will eventually default. History proved him right. States that ignored cost collapsed. States that managed it survived longer. And this is where Sun Tzu stops being ancient history and becomes modern reality. Vietnam, Afghanistan, World War I. These wars weren't lost because armies were weak. They were lost because the economic model behind them failed. Sun Tzu would have recognized the pattern instantly. Prolonged warfare erodes the state faster than the enemy ever could. And the tools he championed, intelligence, speed, indirect pressure, are now the backbone of modern strategy precisely because they're cheaper. Cyber warfare, sanctions, proxy conflicts, influence operations, all Sun Tzu. He understood that power doesn't come from force alone. It comes from economic resilience. Technology changes, the math doesn't. Sun Tzu's true lesson was never about how to fight. It was about how to avoid national bankruptcy. States don't fail because they lose battles. They fail because they drain the capital that holds them together. The best war is the one that doesn't leave your economy broken afterward. The art of war isn't a celebration of aggression. It's a philosophy of restraint, not about striking harder, but about lasting longer. Sun Tzu didn't glorify conquest. He glorified stability. And history keeps proving him right. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look.